fire for a lot of parents. And we have to be honest about that fact. And if you look at where the gender craziness is the most common, it's most common among upper middle class to lower middle class white progressives.
100%.
Now, you could believe, okay, that there's just like something genetic going on in the mind of a wealthy white progressive, or you could believe that this is a cultural trend that we should be questioning a lot more than we are right now. And unfortunately, I mean, here's one thing that I really worry about is, okay, think about the incentives. People are very good at rationalizing things. If you are a, middle class or upper middle class white parent, and the only thing that you care about is whether your child goes into Harvard or Yale, like obviously that pathway has become a lot harder for a lot of upper middle class kids. But the one way that those people can participate in the DEI bureaucracy in this country is to be trans. And is there a dynamic that's going on where if you become trans, that is the way to reject your white privilege, right? That's the social signifier.
Yeah.
The only one that's available in the hyper woke mindset is if you become gender non-binary.
Non-binary is the best one because you don't even have to do anything. You can just say I could say I'm non-binary, and like you don't have to do anything, but all of a sudden you're a part of the group.
Yeah, well, that's right. And again, I think it's important to sort of, most people are not saying, oh, I'm white privileged. How do I become part of the privileged set? But it's these weird ways in which these ideas creep into the mind to the mainstream.
Right.
And people are very good at rationalizing these things. And so what I think 20, 30 years ago, even among very well-to-do white progressives, like an 11-year-old boy says, I think that I'm a girl. Most of the time we would have said, oh, that's ridiculous and crazy and, ha ha ha, and come back to me in a couple of days. Now I think there's this massive incentive to try to say, oh my God, does that mean that my kid is trans? And I also think it's, to your point, very warping on the minds of young kids, because what they're now doing is taking normal adolescent curiosity and normal adolescent discomfort. Like, I don't know a single person who went from the ages of 10 to 15 who didn't say, oh, like, sometimes I had some, weird ideas, or I dressed weird for a couple of years or something, right? It's a confusing phase for most Americans. We take that normal adolescent confusion, and then we try to medicalize it. And nobody's saying, oh, when we do medicalize it, by the way, a lot of pharmaceutical companies get very rich off of it.
Not only very rich, but then the child is sterilized.
Yes.
I mean, this is for a lot of these kids. They'll never be able to have children ever again. If they change their mind, if they one day decide, oh, I was just going through a confusing time in my life, but now I've ruined my voice with hormones, my ovaries are destroyed.
Yep.
I had my testicles removed. Like, the whole thing is crazy.
So this is where I had the real breaking point with a friend that I mentioned earlier, is she made this argument that puberty blockers are fully reversible.
That's crazy.
And I'd actually never heard that. I mean, this is a few years ago. I'd never heard that argument before. And so I actually went and looked at it and looked at the data on this. The idea that if you give puberty delaying, puberty blockers, whatever you're going to call them, to kids who are 11, 12, 13, that's fully reversible, that is completely and preposterously insane. Now, even the most radical advocates of trans healthcare do not say that, right? Because look, I mean, you have sexual dysfunction, you have, to your point, hair in weird places that won't go away, you have voice changes that won't go away. We're experimenting on tens of thousands of American children. We're making them miserable. It's not having any long-term health benefit. It's making a lot of pharmaceutical companies rich. And it's conservative Republicans are the only ones saying, maybe this is a little crazy. Maybe we should stop.
Well, it just shows you how a lot of this, if you can call it a mind virus or whatever it is, it does make people behave religiously.
Yes.
So it's like they're ignoring all of these signs because it doesn't line up with this ideology that they subscribe to.
That's right.
Like, you have to support trans kids. Like, okay, what are you even saying? How is this a new thing? So pervasive? How is it everywhere? And how are you letting them compete with girls in school? That one drives me bananas. When you have biological males all they have to do is, they don't even have requirements in some schools. You don't have to be taking hormones. You could just identify and you can compete as a girl.
And of course, that causes injury to the young girls.
Of course.
And again, this gives me faith in the wisdom of the American people, because if you see how radically the Democrats leaned into this stuff 4 years ago, and how much, Kamala Harris is running away from it today, most Americans, they don't really care who you sleep with. They're pretty open-minded about most lifestyle choices. But when you talk about having a biological male compete with their teenage girl in competitive sports, Americans are saying, no. This is crazy. You're causing injury to my kids. We have to stop this.
Not only that,